kablolu internetinden bağlanıyorum. Yani katı portalı da kullanmıyorum. Ona rağmen yine problem çıkıyor.
Hocam iyi aslında ya. Çok
Şu an iyi hocam. Şu an bence iyi.
Her fakültedeki odama da geçmedim ki. Orası biraz daha kalıyor. Burası yabancı dillerinki biraz daha yüksek, güçlü derecesi. Ama yine de problem yaşıyoruz.
Hocam sanki büyük bir salondasın da ses yankı yapıyor. Acaba ondan mı?
Odadayım, evet.
Ondan bence büyük ondandır. Sesin dağılıyor.
Ne oldu? Şu an bir problem yok herhalde hocam. Birkaç dakikaya başlarız isterseniz. Şöyle bir iki dakika daha bekleyelim.
Tamam.
Hocalarım isterseniz başlayalım yavaştan. Hazırsanız. Ben girişi yapayım. Okay, so dear participants, welcome to KTUDELL's fourth online seminar series, Going Beyond Alışılmışın Ötesinde, and its fifth presentation. I'm Zehra Gürsoy, one of the research assistants of our department. Today, we welcome Assistant Professor Dr. Fehmi TURGUT from our very own KTUDELL. Before moving on, let us show you our home, Trabzon, and then I will share some brief information about our guest. Let me share my screen very quickly for the video.
For the past years, I devoted myself to show Turkey to the world. And for this purpose, I created the project, Show Me Turkey. Now, with this project, I will take you to the beautiful city that I was born, Trabzon. Being here is feeling here. So let's feel the city together. The sea is the fellow and the earth of Trabzon. It bears and it gives. After feeling the city center, I used the Visit Trabzon app to dive into the nature of Trabzon. First, we went Uzungöl to do paragliding and explored from above. You may think it's only beautiful in summer, but it's also beautiful in winter. After that, we hit the road to explore more of Trabzon's nature. Even being on the roads was amazing. We followed the roads to our next location, Düzköy. And we hiked in this amazing place to enjoy the most of it. We slept here that day to enjoy the stars above. In the morning, we set out to a new adventure. Cruising along these blue and green coasts, we went to explore the Asst waterfall in Meraklı. After that, it was time to explore some history carved in nature. A place hidden in the mountains. Passing through the valley of Altındere, you reach there. The Smela Monastery. It welcomed us with Haya Varvara Church just underneath. As we went up, we were overwhelmed by its beauty. Then, to explore the details inside, we went in. After seeing this extraordinary structure, we went to see another hidden beauty near here, the monastery of Vazelon. Having seen these natural beauties of Trabzon, I can say this is only a glimpse of what Trabzon's nature has. And now, I only have one story left to tell. It's the heart of this town, Trabzonspor. It is the spirit of Trabzon streets. It is the feeling of belonging. And for the people of Trabzon, Trabzonspor is life. This was Show Me Turkey Trabzon. See you in the next city.
Okay, so thanks for watching the video with us. Now let me continue with our guest Fehmi Hocam's very short biography, let's say. So Assistant Professor Dr. Fehmi TURGUT graduated from Atatürk University's English Language Teaching Department in 1987 and completed his MA study at Karadeniz Technical University, Department of Applied Linguistics in 2004. He obtained his PhD degree at the same university in English Language and Literature in 2015 with his thesis titled Power Struggles in Shakespeare Roman Tragedies, Coriolanus, Antony and Cleopatra, and Julius Caesar. In 1997, he started teaching as a lecturer at KTU School of Foreign Languages and switched to KTU Department of English Language and Literature in 1999. Fehmi TURGUT is now Assistant Professor Doctor at KTUDELL and Director of the KTU Graduate School of Foreign Languages. His research areas include social sciences and humanities, political science, English language and literature, English interpreting and translating, and arts. And tonight he will give a presentation titled Linguistic Manipulations in Media Texts, Putting Words into Attitudes or Vice Versa. Now, before leaving the stage to our moderator, Professor Dr. Mustafa Naci Kayaoğlu, let me remind you to get your certificate of participants when shared in the chat boxes on Zoom and YouTube. And you can leave your questions or contributions to the chat boxes for us to read them aloud after the presentation. And now, Naci Hocam, the stage is yours.
Zehra'cığım, thank you very much. Good evening to all. Linguistic manipulation in media text. This is a topic, a quite new topic. Fehmi Hocam, thank you very much for choosing this very timely topic, which I believe has very close references to our daily life, because we are very often subjected to the flow of media and manipulations and almost daily basis. But the topic at the same time seems to be an extension of what Kamil Aydın said yesterday, referring to the distinction between algı and olgu, fact and perception, or reality or illusion. And if you remember, he said we have suffered a lot, not from the facts which are not around, which are not discussed anyway, but from the perceptions and also illusions which replace reality and also become reality itself. So what is being discussed around is not reality itself, but also illusion. So the ideas which we believe belong to us may be the ideas planted in our mind or heads, even without realizing them. So this is done through manipulation of mass media that controls the power, as we agreed in our talk yesterday, through language and audiovisual elements. So the question, are we always in control of our minds? I mean, do we control ourselves? Do we control our minds? Sometimes we have very strong convictions and ideas about certain issues, and we may feel we develop these ideas because we are the ones to vocalize, to express them. But if we question the source of our perception and convictions in real sense, strangely enough, we may end up being just puppets on a string, unfortunately. The psychology as a discipline provides a very substantial evidence, some of them empirical. So lots of decisions we make, lots of ideas, convictions we have are influenced by things we are not aware of. So there are many experiments showing that how easily we are manipulated by some gentle persuasion. I mean, think of the products, for example, we buy, think of the products we use, we go and buy from shops. So we may claim it's our choice, it's our preference, it's our decision. But when someone asks why and how we have made this choice, why we have chosen particular product, we may have some explanation which we believe would create confidence. That is, it's our choice, despite the fact that it had already been built by subliminal messages, mostly through language coupled with some sort of visuals. So ideas just like product, either to sell or to buy. So they simply let us persuade ourselves with gentle persuasion through the manipulation of words without spending too much time and energy. So our ability or capacity to make a deliberate decision, unfortunately, may often be an illusion. We know for sure, for example, there are many companies, many respected media sources, including BBC, but they have been used to manipulate people, not necessarily always through fake news, but sometimes manipulation of the words, certain feelings, emotions, information, have been fabricated by those in power for their own interest, and also they spread through media. Millions of dollars spent to manipulate the world, public opinion, by those who control the power and control the language. So many stories are fabricated at a table, circulated around the world to buy what? Public opinion, or to sell certain policy. So it's very interesting to see that the global media, including the text and even the social media, uses highly informative and prestigious interviews with top officials and experts, and also eye-opening documentaries to create their own illusion for us to buy. We do it. So all this achieved, realized through the use or misuse or manipulation of words, fixed, mixed in visuals. So while, for example, civilians and innocent people in Gaza have been heavily bombarded by sophisticated weapons for years, and we also have been bombarded and through the sophisticated use of manipulated language in media, text, and for years. So I'm sure Fehmi Hocam will shed light on this subtle issue and will provide authentic examples from the field, which will increase our awareness of this big trick. And I would be very, very happy if Fehmi Hocam suggests some strategies to adequately resist manipulative language largely, extensively used in media text. Again, Fehmi Hocam, thank you very much and for this really subtle and very timely, very appropriate, very relevant and topic. And I'm sure and the audience will be very satisfied with what you will share with us in relation to your own choice. But I'm sure, and this choice is your own choice, and so you have not been somehow manipulated by any choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hocam, for this very informative and comprehensive introduction. Let me share my presentation with you. Okay. Linguistic manipulations in media texts, putting attitudes and stances into words, which is a very, realistic issue in today's political circles, and vice versa. Sometimes we put words into our attitudes and stances. Well, I have what's happening? I have 10 questions. I mean, just to cover my presentation with 10 answers. with 10 topics and 10 questions, 10 topics. I will just briefly explain these topics. But actually, each of these topics would be a main topic for a study, a comprehensive study. And the first one, I will just talk about the nature of media research. Why media research? Why I want to talk about the nature of media research? Because it is not only my belief, it is a commonly shared belief among researchers. It is that, especially in our country, in Turkey, in academic circles, media research is, especially with a focus on language, is the Cinderella of linguistic studies. It is a neglected field of study, an ignored field of study. I don't know why, but even my students keep themselves away from studying media language. And in the second question, I will just talk about the main function of language in media texts, because as we know, texts, all texts are constructed, and they use language in a very efficient and expressive way. And the third one will be about linguistic manipulation. The fourth will be about the domains of language, the domains which use language manipulatively. The fifth will be about linguistic influence in media texts. The sixth is about the influence of newspapers. I limit my presentation to newspaper texts. I'm not interested, at least in this presentation, in social media language or other type of media products, only newspaper texts or articles or news stories. Here I use a quote with this word story. And the seventh is a question whether news reporting is objective, free from realism or not. And with a very close connection with this is the eighth one, whether language is free of values. And I will just mention some journalistic techniques used in media text, especially in news stories. And then I will just give some topics of syntactic or lexical or linguistic manipulations with some very updated examples from different media platforms. Well, what is the nature of media research? First, media research is the study of the linguistic, social, psychological, and physical aspects and effects of the different mass media products. For example, again, we have a lot of questions here. What are the linguistic features of the language media uses? I say it is an ignored field of study, especially by linguists. And we call this field of study, media linguistics. And what are the characteristics of the texts produced in media platforms? We call this media textuality. How much time do people spend with a particular medium? Maybe it doesn't fall into our, area of interest. Whether it has the effect of bringing about changes in the perspectives of people, yes, it does, the answer. And does the use of medium have any harmful effects? Yes, again, if we are unaware of the way media manipulates us. And whether these effects are because of technology, yes, some are just because of technology or the program contents. And finally, what the media users want and expect to hear or read or see and experience. Well, over the course of more than some 30 years or so, linguistic and cultural critical approaches to media research have become increasingly popular all across the world. And one of the common methods of examining media content or studying media
From time to time, I guess we have some technical problems. Fehmi Hocam, we can't hear you. We lost your voice for the last 10 seconds, Hocam.
is it
No, I can't hear you. I don't know. Maybe you can try again, Hocam. I can hear the clicking, but I don't hear anything else at the moment.
Is it okay? Is it okay?
Yes, Hocam, now it's okay.
Okay. Well, textual analysis, what we do, how we study the language, it is by textual analysis. Well, what is textual analysis? It is a dynamic model, an approach that turns the light on where meanings are negotiated by actively participating readers. And linguistic and socio-linguistic analysis of media texts pay close attention to the linguistic details, to the form and texture of the media text. When we perform, for example, text analysis on a text, we make an educated guess at some of the most likely interpretations. Why? Because a text does not include or contain only one meaning or one interpretation. There might be many interpretations depending on the context, on the reader, etc. Well, there is no correct such thing as single correct interpretation of the text. We have put it. There are large numbers of possible interpretations. Some of which will be more likely than others, and in some very particular circumstances. The second question is, what is the main function of language in media texts? Well, very often, or usually, the language can be characterized or can be considered as, or described as the language of propaganda or rhetoric. For example, when we use language, whether it be orally or in written form, our main purpose is to convey some sort of message to other people. But here, within the context of media research or media text, this language is much more manipulated. And it is much more persuasive. Why? Because it attempts to influence the receiver implicitly or explicitly towards a desired attitude, stance, or behavior. And language used in this way is often labeled as propaganda or rhetoric. Both of these words have negative connotations, but propaganda is the one mostly used to describe in a derogatory way methods of political campaigning and media language. Well, according to Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, propaganda and rhetoric is defined intended particular cause. especially a political one, and this is very interesting, this language is, or the content is often exaggerated or false. It is what Oxford Dictionary says. It does not belong to me. Rhetoric or propaganda can therefore be defined as the art of persuasive discourse. The discourse here refers to either spoken or written communication. Well, this kind of language used to a large extent complies with the instrumental function of language. What is this function? It is used to manipulate the environment that leads to a particular situation. Media linguistics in some books is also defined as instrumental linguistics. This is a new term I have encountered in media research books, instrumental linguistics. It also complies with regulatory function of language, and this function means the use of language that serves to control an event. Actually, all media news stories try to control an event, whether they approve it a reality, but here reality is not the reality we know, or reject it. Personal function of language also is included. What does this mean? This means the use of language that serves to express feelings, emotions, and personality. Actually, in news stories, we see the writer's feelings, emotions, and personality. I will mention this at the end of my presentation. Well, the third one is what is linguistic manipulation? What do we mean by linguistic manipulation? Well, linguistic manipulation is any verbal interaction loaded with negative intention of the speaker or of the author to distort reality. This is important, to distort reality. And with masked layer of linguistic data, which is not easily separated from purely informational content. Yeah, it is difficult to separate it from the informational content. This is what makes linguistic manipulation or media manipulation dangerous. Well, what is linguistic manipulation? Linguistic manipulation is closely associated with what is left in a text, or what the writer puts in a text or adds to a text, or what is left out, what the author, the writer, or the speaker excludes from the text, and how words are ordered. This is very important in media texts. Well, what is the perfect manipulative message? It is a message which cannot be qualified as manipulation. And they do this very successfully. And the manipulative message has an informational dimension. Therefore, well, manipulative message always starts from a real. The starting point is a reality, authentic or veritable fact. But what happens? Manipulation brings the fact to a state of informational minimality. A state of informational minimality. What do I mean by this? With this manipulative methods, we move from macro fact to micro fact, from maximum fact to minimum fact, or reality, or truth. Or we move to post-truth. You will see how many truths we have, or relativized truth, or fictional truth, or parallel truth, or nuanced truth, or alternative truth, or virtual or strategic truth. So, and there is also the psychological dimension of manipulative discourse. It focuses on psychologically sensitizing the target audience to the manipulative methods. This dimension exploits the reality that target audience does not have cleavage. Yeah, we people have attitudes, and our views rise on our attitudes. In the end, the manipulator and the manipulated have similar identifications, whether positive or negative. If it is positive, this means, or the manipulator tells us that you and I, we have the same opinions, attitudes, motives, interests, and values, etc. If the identification is negative, the manipulator tells us that we oppose together to some wrong opinions. We fight together an attitude, a mentality. We think better than others. We behave more correctly than others. We have other goals than the opponents, etc. Well, my fourth topic is what domains use language manipulated. Every one of you may know this. Actually, two domains blamed for using language manipulatively. They are politics, political circles, and the idea that politicians are able to give statements is a very widespread one. And also the language they use are full of biases. And any study with, or any book, any research study which deals with the political discourse will relate politicians and the press, or political circles with the press, just because of the language they use. And as the role played by the press and other mass media gets more and more important in our society, political parties, other influential groups, and think tank organizations have increasingly used public relations experts to channel their facts or to impose their ideas on their target audience. And so then the newspapers get stories without any effort because of this very close relationship with politicians, and the politicians get public for free. the issue of this twin relationship between newspapers and politicians, as well as the question of objective news reporting, is alone a branch of study. Why politicians and media use manipulative language? Because recently they have invented unique ways of using language. And this language deviates from normal everyday discourse. And the reason is to manifest power, or power is manifested in political through this strategic use of language, especially in today's world. And one more thing, very few of us have trained ourselves not to react to provocative verbal behavior of media producers or politicians. And media literacy is not studied in our schools. We have some types of literacies. We have normal literacy. It means just to recognize the printed letters on a sheet of paper. I mean, as primary school children do. We have media literacy. We have digital literacy. We have information literacy. So we are prone, we are vulnerable to provocative verbal behaviors coming by politicians and media producers. What is the linguistic influence in media text? Media language or media linguistics. We have two terms. What is media language? For a reader, and media language is one of the most objects in our country. Therefore, the existing science discipline for this, media linguistics. Can you hear me? It's okay?
Yes, Hocam, we can hear you. From time to time, for a second or two, we lose your voice, but for now it's okay.
All media texts are constructed, or all texts are constructed. Within the context of media, someone has made decisions about how they should be constructed so that the form of the text matches the content and with a particular audience in mind. So form, content, and audience in mind, we have a triangle. So linguistic influence here implies the presentation of a message, appealing to both mind and emotion and imagination. And when it is used efficiently and implicitly, and probably most powerful, and media research explain this with this weaponizing or the weaponization of language. In Turkish, silahlaştırılma. It is easy to resist a particular viewpoint or ideology when you know it. But in media text, it is hidden. So to study linguistic influence or to study media linguistic is to study how to do things with words. And this linguistic influence in media can be political, cultural, ideological, social, and all of these have very here again we have some other key terms here. One of them is systemic functional grammar. So this linguistic influence, language influence in media study with reference to systemic functional grammar, or another key term, systemic functional linguistics. These build a theory of language with reference to speaker or writer choices. And these social meanings, cultural meanings, political meanings, ideological meanings made from all these texts. And this approach takes language as a social semiotic, and this language attributes power to meaning, not meaning to power. Anlama güç. Okay, and this approach focuses on three kinds of meaning in a given media text. The first one is ideational meaning, which means useful systems for news analysis, as transitivity and metaphor. And the second one is relational meaning, which is perhaps the most interesting, as it encompasses the matters of voice, stance, status, alignment, affiliation, and evaluation, which are instilled in the text by the author. Which bears on the order of elements in the clause mentioned as information structure under pragmatics. Okay, the sixth one is what is the influence of newspapers? My next question. Modern media is mainly, or media platforms are mainly devoted to political and cultural and issues. And we see, or we have seen a change in modern media. This change moves from being informative. When asked, they will tell you that their main task is to inform you, but no, this is not true. Being informative to influential. Newspapers are assigned a very powerful role in the second, the fourth power, dördüncü güç in some countries, but now today they are the first power. When it comes to having influence over their readers and the public view, the commonly held shared public view is that newspapers more or less determine what attitudes and values the readers should embrace. Today, view on the power of newspapers has shifted again. Now today, research focuses on what is called, or what we call as agenda setting. They set their own agenda. The agenda you may find in a newspaper or news platform may not be the agenda in another one. So they have different agendas. Well, There is another key term, agenda building. They not only set the agenda, they build agenda for some power groups. Okay, if agenda setting is newspapers' ability to influence the political agenda of the public, agenda building is rather the ability of newspapers and the public to influence the agenda of those in power, or to influence the agenda of the political sphere. So the conclusion is, in respect of agenda setting and agenda building, newspapers are powerful and influential as molders and builders of public opinion. My next question is whether objective news reporting is possible or not. When asked, journalists will tell you that their objectivity or their aim is to tell you the truth. But the scholars are not of this opinion. According to the scholars, objective news reporting is impossible. There is no such thing as unbiased report, no such thing as neutral language used in a news story. According to Fowler, the news is not a value-free reflection of facts. The structure of a news text embodies values and beliefs. According to Bergstrom, journalism influences its surroundings, and it is impossible to influence people without, at the same time, consciously or unconsciously mediate moral conceptions of how the world should be constituted. Anyone who claims that it is possible to be wholly objective when describing the world does not know what they are talking about. Another idea comes from Bell. He says, journalists are passionate storytellers of our age. Interesting. Argues that journalists write stories, not articles. Here, I have a block quotation from there. I'm going to read it. We talk about news stories. Other texts that deliver information are not referred to as stories. We don't talk about report stories, or letter stories, or textbook stories. A story is an account of imaginary past events, narrative tale, anecdote. Why are news stories referred to in a way that gives them a status of fictional accounts? The definition, account of past events, may to some extent relate to a factual account, but carries the implication of interpretation, elaboration, and the creation of a narrative. This means there is always a narrative in a news article or in a news story. Well, is language free of values? Well, most scholars would probably agree that language is not value-free. Attached to the words are conceptions. These conceptions, whether we like it or not, affect our way of interpreting what we hear, what we see, and what we read in media. How we use them may also disclose our own attitudes, our own values towards persons and events. Language is a means of communication, means of presenting and shaping series of beliefs. Language is not something somehow separate from the ideas it contains, but the way language is used says a great deal about how the ideas have been shaped. This comes from birth. There are always different ways of saying the same thing, and differences in expressions may therefore carry ideological distinctions. So language becomes a powerful tool, which at worst can be used in a provocative and manipulative way to influence other people. But of course, this does not mean that everybody who uses language is a manipulator of language. Here, the problem lies in that respecting this principle gives rise to an increased vulnerability to being exposed to linguistic manipulation. I mean, when we think language is free of values, may just make us vulnerable to manipulations. Well, my next topic is what journalistic techniques media producers or news story writers use. Briefly, I will just try to explain this. They sharpen, they sum up, and they select what angle to use. They make it concrete, or this is concretization. This means avoidance of abstractions and favoring the specific at the expense of general. Another one is simplification. A complex reality is made comprehensible to the reader just by simplifying it. Another one is polarization. Attention is called to opposites, intensification, stereotyping, concealment, distortion of various degrees, minimization or equivocation, and falsification. All these are just techniques and strategies media producers are use. Well, as for syntactic manipulations, as all of us know, syntax, when we use a language, when we write, when we speak, syntax provides us with a wide range of possibilities to express ourselves. Different syntactic choices we make while we are writing may evoke while we are speaking, or may evoke different reactions from the listeners or readers. And here, so syntactic choices are important, and my examples, or for manipulative linguistic manipulations, are mainly about, or will mainly be about syntactic choices. And one of these choices is transitivity. We know it from our knowledge of grammar, but here the transitivity, I mean, within the context of my presentation, is not or cannot be or should not be confused with the term we use to describe the transitive or intransitive nature of different words. Here, transitivity, according to Bert, involves looking at the language which is used to describe A, what happens, B, who the participants are, okay, affected by what is done, and see what the circumstances are. Here, transitivity involves transformations of sentences, such as the choice between active and passive structures. Why they do this, we are going to see. Active and passive voice. Active and passive voice mean, especially when it is used in a language, in media text, how blame, how credit, responsibility is to be distributed among the participants of an action. The role of a participant may be emphasized, it may be minimized, or it may entirely be omitted according to the way you use the action, verb, in your media text. To emphasize or minimize the role performed by a participant can also be called foregrounding or backgrounding, öne alma or arkaya alma. Active voice is chosen in media text when focus is on the actor and when this focus is desired, or when this focus is a desirable one, implying responsibility for the action performed. Passive voice, on the other hand, gives the story a new orientation, and it creates a different effect. In transforming a sentence into passive, the actor, the performer of the action, becomes less prominent, and the person or the thing affected by the action is focused here. Here, I have some examples. Palestinian teenager shot dead in clash at protests. Passive. Do we know anything about the performer? No. So, the information of performer is completely omitted here. Israeli police shot dead. Well, another word choice in a headline, okay, comes from Guardian. Now we see the performer and the verb is active. Israeli police shot dead Palestinian knife actor in Jerusalem. Another one comes from CNN. Israel bombed the house of Hamas Gaza leader and obliterated the family's home in Gaza. The same event, action, is lexicalized in a different way. Targeted homes of Hamas members overnight. Hamas leaders' home targeted. Who did it? Unknown. We are given nothing here. Another one, home of Hamas leader targeted. Israeli airstrikes in Gaza killed 20 people, included 9 children. Here, no information left out. Remember, in the previous parts of my presentation, I mentioned what is left in, what is left out. So manipulation here, when we use active or passive verbs, explains what is left in a text or what is left out of a text. 20 Palestinians killed in fighting, including 9 children. Who killed them? How did it happen? It is missing. We are given no information about this. At least, another one, at least 18 died, 18 what? As hospital hit in shelling of Syrian city. Another one, 13 killed, died, killed. This is also lexicalization I will mention in the upcoming parts of my presentation. 13 killed in hospital attack in opposition held Syria town. Here, the act of killing involves at least two people. One is the victim and the other one is the killer. Who is the killer? It is left out. An act of dying involves only one. It is only the deceased. Here is the manipulation. Another syntactic or linguistic manipulation is modality. We know, again, a lot about modality from our knowledge of grammar in English. Here, modality refers to different ways of expressing attitudes towards a person, towards a situation, towards an event, and it gives opinions about what is to be judged as true, what is to be judged as likely or untrue, normal or abnormal, desirable or undesirable. And you know, modality is usually expressed with the help of modal auxiliaries. I will not mention all of these because we all know a lot about this, but here I will just talk about should. It is very simple, but whenever you see a should in a media text, be sure that that text fixes norms or it serves norm fixation. This norm may be political, this norm may be cultural, this norm may be moral, this norm may be ideological, religious, or of any kind. So what does this mean? Or what does norm fixation means? What we find good or bad, right or wrong? What are actions and goals try to respect or achieve? Therefore, journalists may emphasize their spatial focus on truth, actuality, and reliability in their accounts of the facts. Norm fixations are more apparent in Turkey reports. I studied one of them, but it was a limited study. I just mentioned one part of the report. In European Commission's 2020 report for Turkey, if you go to the report, the main text of the report, you will see more than 100 sentences which include Turkey should. Imagine a text, imagine a report in which you see 100 sentences beginning with Turkey should not. Full of norms or norm fixations. Here I have some examples here. Turkey should in particular adopt a credible, comprehensive, and meaningful action plan on human rights. This means Turkey does not have a credible, comprehensive, and meaningful action plan on human rights. Turkey should in particular release journalists, human rights defenders, lawyers, writers, academics. Well, this means Turkish jails or prisons are full of these people. Some of them are, yes. And the third one, the authorities should increase access to public health for migrants. There are refugees in the country. Anybody who reads this sentence will understand that, or I mean, we get the idea that in Turkey, migrants and refugees do not have access to public. Another one, Biden can't let Turkey's Erdogan get away with his threats to Americans any longer, cannot. And this sentence, the model cannot or can't, here is used to influence, to persuade, and to give directives. It also implies a logical and epistemic necessity, physical, moral, mental, and legal impossibility. Well, another one is nominalization. Some or most of us may miss this while we are reading, especially headlines. Together with passivization, nominalization is one of the most common types of transformation media writers use to delete information from a sentence. Delete information from a sentence. Nominalization is a process which involves the exchange of a verb phrase for a single noun or a noun phrase. So it deletes information, or it minimalizes the effect, the influence of the action. In doing so, features of the sentence, such as action, such as participants, indication of time and modality may be deleted. Okay, this sentence or nominalization deletes the effect which normally can be created by the action itself. Well, what is the purpose here? Why they use nominalization? For example, they use it to present an unpleasant activity carried out by one person to another as an unpleasant event that has no named participant. So they hide it, especially if the event is a negative one or an unpleasant one. I have some examples again. Bearing the brunt, the suffering of children in the Gaza-Israel conflict. Now, instead of saying or writing, well, it is children who suffer most in Gaza-Israel conflict, the suffering of children. There is a minimalization here. It comes from God. All a deadly missile attack on a hospital in Afrin, Syria. Nominalization. It comes from Al Jazeera. Gazze'de büyük patlama. O da değil. And another one, permutation. I couldn't find a Turkish equivalent for this word permutation. Initialization. To use a word as the first word of a sentence. Why it is important? If the sentence has a negative meaning, that word, if it is a name, a country name, a politician's name, that name is used in a negative context. Tel Aviv targeted by rocket attacks from Gaza. Gazze'de İsrail'e yönelik nükleer saldırılarda sürüyor. İsrail de roketler nedeniyle 8 hayatını kaybetti. Tel Aviv, negative Tel Aviv of victimization of Israel. In these sentences, Israel is the victim. Why Turkey and Greece cannot reconcile? This sentence has a negative meaning. What is the first word? Turkey. Why? Because it has a negative meaning. Another one comes from Deutsche Welle English. Greece, Turkey agreed to work, but not Turkey agrees. This sentence has a positive meaning. Luis is the first word. Islamic State military leader arrested in Turkey. It comes from the Independent. Positive meaning, but Turkey takes a secondary role and a secondary prominence here. In another one, Turkey's infamous deep state is back in the spotlight. The negative is meaning, the meaning is negative. Turkey is the first and the subject position. The next one is lexicalization. Well, it is up to the writer which words to use or to decide to choose which words to use in some given circumstance or event. Lexicalization is the art of using a suitable term or using suitable terms to describe events, to describe beliefs, to describe values. And we know that similar or different meanings, words, terms can be used to explain a given event, a given belief, a given phenomenon, depending on the position, depending on the role, depending on the goals, depending on the point of view, or depending on ideology or opinion. And lexicalization is a major and a well-known domain of ideological expression. And persuasion, we know it from a commonly known or used words. Instead of terrorist, some use freedom fighter. This is lexicalization. Although Israeli police neutralize assailant who stabbed two in East Jerusalem. Not kill, but neutralize. Russian Today. Erdogan fires the party governor of Turkey's central bank. Here, the word or the verb fire gives a negative connotation or connotation or negative meaning to the sentence. America's Kurdish partners is the U.S. betraying its Kurdish allies. President Trump's promise to withdraw troops from Syria could leave one of America's closest partners. Again, this title uses partners. As Biden meeting nears, Erdogan softens his stance. Trump gives Turkey green light to invade Syria. So maybe there are different words to use for, this action. Turkey's existence in Syria. Maybe it is interference. Sometimes they use incursion, but here Jerusalem Post uses invasion or the verb invade. And the last one is dramatization and sensationalization. This happens at text level, not at sentence or word level. Here, the way media uses or the way media products, media cover an event may sometimes serve as a seriousness or a danger or an emergency, or sometimes it may serve as a risk amplifier. dramatization and sensationalization of this kind of media covered satires or media manipulation. Media authors use these in order to embroider facts, happenings, actions in their own favor. And this gives the events and happenings a disproportionate amount of attention and prominence, and displays an emotion-evoking and reaction-sparking role on the audience. It was 2 years ago in a conference, I just delivered a presentation about the mediality of Turkey in foreign press. And that presentation, I used an article written by Elif Shafak. The title is "Family Suicides in Turkey Speak of a Society That Has Lost Hope." It was published in Guardian. There is another manipulation here in the title. It is generalization. Well, Elif Shafak makes a generalization here. I mean, there is a very close, connection between family suicides and loss of hope, or people's loss of hope in Turkey. So I will just read a paragraph from Elif Shafak's article. It is the opening paragraph. And Fatih is known as one of the most conservative districts of Istanbul. Last week, some people in the area saw a note attached to the door of a flat. Beware, there is CNN inside. Call the police. Don't enter. Whoever wrote the note had clearly wanted to protect the neighbors from a toxic. Arrived, they found 4 bodies. 2 men, 2 women, aged between 48 and 60. The dead were all from the same family, the Yetişkins, who had been residents of the neighborhood for decades. The siblings had, according to friends, also lived in unemployment and penury. The wages of one sister, a music teacher, used to keep creditors at bay. Unable to find jobs to cover the family's growing debts, they had been battling depression and anxiety. This is what I mean by, and the photograph Elif Shafak and the Garden uses for this article. Another manipulation and another speculation and perception comes with this photograph. Well, this is the end of my presentation, but I will add 2 other types of manipulation, which alone, each of which alone can be a topic of study. One of them comes from an American media researcher, Stephen Utitz. It is effect infusion. Effect infusion. Effect infusion partly can be seen in Elif Shafak's article. The writer instills affection in the text. And within the context of political discourse and media discourse, this infusion is mainly negative. So Utitz calls this as negative affective language. And the second one is, you can see it very often in newspaper headlines, rhetorical questions. Instead of saying something is blah, blah, you say, is this a, you ask a question. And what you do, you keep yourself away from responsibility. Thank you very much for listening to me. This is the end of my presentation.
Fehmi Hocam, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Fehmi Hocam, thank you very much for this very, very, very, how can I say, more than informative actually, because there is too much content to digest. There are too much to internalize, and so we need some time, Hocam, to grasp and also internalize all you have said. And if someone asked me to summarize what Fehmi Hocam has said in his presentation, well, I can say for years we have taught our students language is a means of communication between and amongst people of the same or different cultures, which it is anyway. But after Fehmi's very inspiring presentation, we are fully convinced that language can be used, is now used as a kind of sophisticated but detrimental weapon to distort reality and truth, and also to manipulate and the opinion, because we used to know truth is unique. I mean, never changes, stays in the same place. But now we are informed that we have many kinds of variations of truth, such as macro, functional, you said virtual, strategic truth, parallel truth. So we are a bit familiar with parallel truth, but we are not fully familiar with that truth. And also you talk about manipulative techniques and used by media, and with authentic and very striking examples from the media or fake media. It's very, very, to me, I find it very striking, and you shared. So, I mean, you said something at the very beginning. We teach written and oral discourse and classroom discourse in our schools, at least at undergraduate level. But we have very rarely, I mean, a course called a media discourse. And I'm very pleased to say and to share this information with the audience, with you now. And Fehmi Hocam offers a media discourse, a course called Media Discourse at MA in Applied Linguistics. I'm sure there is, and you have a lot of questions and also comments. So I once more thank Fehmi Hocam for this very, let's say, going beyond presentation, and it's quite neat, even to me. At least some parts I find quite amazing and interesting. So I open the platform for any questions, for any contributions. Ali Hocam, it's very great honor and pleasure to see you, Hocam.
Hocam,
we have not been able to hear you, but I heard that you were having some sort of let's say health problem, but you seem okay. Yes.
When you are old, you are vulnerable to all the illnesses coming over you. So you know. Well, I'm really sorry for last night. The Seljuk has informed me that you called me, but I wasn't feeling well because of the side effects of the infection, vaccination. I'm really sorry. I was really a terrible condition last night. I'm really sorry for that.
I have been there a few days ago.
Really? So you may guess what I suffered, Hocam, Fehmi Hocam. When it comes to today's, today's talk, Fehmi Hocam did very bad thing tonight. but actually, everyone is going to ask me what he did, bad, because as far as I understand, he actually challenged the very basis of journalism, and also destroyed all the notions that we have been inculcated for ages and ages, that newspapers are the ones which inform the public of what's going on in society. But actually, I noticed that, what Hocam, Fehmi Hocam, I really thank him that, what I have understood is that we had been in illusion for years and years. We always quoted some famous writers, famous reports, and so on, so much. So even today, I read an article written by a writer in Daily Sabah. He was saying that, from now on, families will not marry their daughters to journalists. So, Hocam, I wonder, probably, that, for a long time in Turkey, we are talking about this polarization of media. So in your presentation, you argued that language is a politic. There is a huge politics behind the language. So again, if we go from the Foucault, there is a close relationship between the power and the knowledge produced. This is what I know. You know better than me. So in Turkey, some critics argue that one part of the journalism or newspapers support those in power, and then they are trying to show that side as brilliant, as doing everything well and nice, nothing is wrong, and so forth. But on the other hand, there is another group. They claim that their voice is not heard by society because the power always supersedes us, power always suppresses us. So in this case, so where are we going to locate ourselves? Which one are we going to follow? So there is no truth, I think. That all of them, according to your presentation, is not telling us the truth, but they are actually imposing on us what they intend to give us through the words, through the symbols and the images. So you are free, whether or not you answer it, but.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Hocam.
Actually, I'm not in a position to answer this question, but yeah, where we find ourselves or where we fix ourselves, it is dangerous for ordinary people or for ordinary readers of newspapers. If we are informed media readers, if we are not media consumers. So we have two terms in media study. I have at BA, both at BA level and MA level. We have two terms, media consumption and media diet. If you consume media, get whatever you are given, okay, you will find yourself in the middle of nowhere. If you are a media literate person, and if you are aware of all these media or linguistic manipulations, at least you have, or you can choose from what is given to you, or you can distinguish between what is, wrong, what is right, or what is harmful, what is dangerous. So it depends on our ability to read media products. Remember, I have never mentioned social media texts. It is a bataklık. Actually, I am not interested in social media texts. But my presentations is focused on printed media or newspapers. So every day I read all newspapers and from different perspectives. I see polarization there, but I do not get all views. I evaluate them, and I am aware of manipulations. I'm aware of speculations. I'm aware of, provocations. So as long as you are a very, informed, media literate person, there is no danger, I think. And this was just, especially for my students, just help them with their media literacy. To make it a media literate person or student. What's happening around us? Or how some people are fiddling with the keys of our mind, okay? How they are trying to control us with the words, with sentences, with visuals. They send to our mind and heart through language or through texts.
So what about the Elif Shafak's piece you read, at the end of your presentation? I didn't get properly, maybe you talked a little bit about it, but I didn't get properly, your comment on whether she did this or that, do you think that she manipulated the event?
Well, I studied Elif Shafak in one of my papers. As I told you 2 years ago, I think it was in Sparta. I studied the language she used in her articles. And I can use this word, to define Elif Shafak's discourse, media discourse. It is poisonous.
Poisonous.
Poisonous, especially if the topic is Turkey. She uses a poisonous media discourse. This is my idea.
So is she talking about against the values, against the, the culture of the society, or is she trying to defame what we have owned for ages and ages, or do you think that she actually shows her grudge against those who manipulated her works, her writings, or let us say ingrained the before? So in what way do you think it's poisonous?
Well, it smells Orientalism. Well, Shafak's articles can also be studied with reference to Orientalism, especially self-Orientalism. But here, I just can draw a very close connection between Naipaul, Salman Rushdie, and Elif Shafak. I did not study her novels and stories. The only texts I was interested in her articles.
I see. Okay, thank you, Hocam. By the way, I would be very happy if you share this presentation with us, if you don't mind,
Ali Hocam, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ali Hocam, thank you very much. It's very good to see you here.
You are most welcome, Naci Hocam. Sorry for last night.
Soon recovery from the negative effects of the vaccination. Okay. So who's next?
Hocam, I can be the next.
Okay, yes, Hocam.
Fehmi Hocam, thank you very much. And this has been quite inspiring and insightful presentation. And I'm quite interested in literature and the idea of defining function of literature, And then at some point in your presentation, you just said newspapers are powerful and influential as molders of public opinion. So I'm just wondering why the literary text, why the literature cannot function in the same way.
Well, of course, if my presentation were about literary text, I would just say use the same sentence. All literary texts are also manipulated. They have to be manipulated, but this manipulation in literary text is somewhat different from the manipulative strategies in media text. So, yeah, I can't distinguish between media or text or newspapers or novels or short stories or poems or plays.
Okay, Hocam, then the next question, the follow-up one. Do you think manipulation is something necessarily negative?
Inevitable.
Don't you think that, Hocam, it gives a different perspective?
Media research takes the concept of manipulation, linguistic manipulation, in a negative meaning. I don't know how it can be considered or how it is approached in literary research. I did not study manipulation, but I know it from my drama classes, and also in plays, manipulation has a negative connotation.
Okay, Hocam. So I was just looking at the idea of manipulation as a kind of perspective, a different perspective. You know, as long as you just read and read, then you just recognize, and we talk about Elif Shafak's novel as a kind of poisonous. But what is wrong with the idea that spilling out the poison? That is what I think, Hocam. I don't know. It is quite acceptable, even if people just poison.
Acceptable for some people, but for me it is poisonous. So it is my perspective.
Okay, Hocam, I see. Okay.
So remember, in one part of my presentation, I just said, borrowed it from a researcher, there is not only one single correct interpretation of a text. We have many interpretations.
Okay, Hocam. Okay. Yep. I mean, thank you again. I just read a novel by Doris Lessing, and it starts with a headline, you know, with the murder of a white lady by the black man. And then it's just the same way. It functions in the same way. You know, the headlines just accuses of Moses as the murderer. But all the pages after this murder defy the idea of murdering, you know, because it just says there hasn't been found any motives behind the murder. So I was thinking your presentation has given me an idea as to how we can use literature as a kind of defying force against the journalism, you know. So thank you, Hocam.
Well, all of my examples were headlines taken from newspaper articles. And according to some media researchers, or some media researchers take headlines in a new genre. Okay, headlines or headlining, whether it be in literature or in media, is considered to be a new genre. So much of the thing happens in the headline. Why? Because especially in electronic environment, readers read only the headline, or the headline will just determine whether the main body of the text is worth reading or not.
Then, Hocam, there is a good relationship between reading habits and then the manipulation.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Hocam. Thank you, Hocam.
Okay, thank you very much. I've seen Doğan Saftaş from Ardahan University has raised his hand. Doğan, are you with us?
Yes, Hocam. Can you hear me? I think I'm having a technical problem with my internet connection. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fehmi Hocam, thank you for this wonderful presentation. It's very good to hear you.
But by the way, I mean, for those who do not know, Doğan Saltaş is very much interested in social media, and also he has a lot of work and publication. So, Doğan, would you talk about social media or yes?
Yes, although Fehmi Hocam told in the beginning that he's going to exclude social media and he's not interested in social media, I'm going to make some comments, and I have prepared some questions, especially for Fehmi Hocam. Fehmi Hocam, as you know, 10 or 20 years ago, you wouldn't have believed if someone told you that you will be responsible for the things you write on the internet. Today, you can easily be sued for the things you share or write, although they are not in real world. I mean, our ineffective virtual identities have become more important than the real ones, because in real life, you can whisper your ideas, your feelings to a minority, like your best friend, like your parents, etc. But on social media, there's a huge potential of spreading. So it is not easy to keep as a secret, I mean, your ideas and your sharings. So in order to be more effective, users of social media have begun to manipulate the existing ideas, thoughts, and opinions in seek of gaining a microfame as well. So this is a new phrase, the microfame on social media. I like it very much. And I'm also interested in social media, as Naci Hocam said. Microfame has become an important issue because people sharing things on social media, consciously or unconsciously, watch the number of interaction, like comments, likes, etc., increasing. So, for example, when you use Instagram and you share a story, you just check the numbers of viewers. So this is the, let's say, unconscious, I think, behavior of internet users. So this feeling in turn leads individuals to manipulate the ideas to get more interaction as well. So I call this as, I think, can you hear me? Yes, can you see me now? I call this as individual manipulation. So Fehmi Hocam, my question is, do we really need to legally cope with individual manipulation on social media? Because individual manipulation is very frequent nowadays, as you can guess.
If you are a very effective user of social media, you are also a manipulator, and then you know how to manipulate. So you can resist manipulation in social media. But I'm not a very efficient and good user of social media. But here, much of the manipulation is achieved in social media nowadays, especially with Trump. You know, politics became one thing which is achieved in Twitter. So
yes,
today, politicians are using Twitter very effectively and very efficiently.
But this is, I think, one of the mistakes we all do. Because, I mean, manipulation is often associated with politicians. But I mean, what I mean here, individuals can be the manipulators as well, who are especially in seek of microfame. So this is what I mean, Fehmi Hocam.
I'm not good at social media terms and concepts, but here.
Because as you know, social media has become more powerful than the traditional.
Of course, much more powerful than printed media. Why? Because billions of users now get their or are opinionated, get their ideas, opinions from social media. So, I mean, this is a mutual relationship. This is why Trump or other politicians write on Twitter about political, domestic or foreign political issues. Or this is why they use Twitter very effectively and efficiently. Why? Because most people are informed through their social media accounts. This is a reality.
Another question. You said that it's the speaker or writer who is responsible for manipulation. do you believe that readers or listeners can manipulate or distort the reality as well?
Pardon? I can't hear you.
At the beginning of your presentation, you said that
Readers,
only speaker or writer who is responsible for manipulation.
Yeah.
Do you believe that listeners or readers can also be the responsible person of manipulation as well? Because you can easily manipulate a normal, let's say, headline or normal sentence by just reading or sharing it with different purposes.
even if they are manipulators, they are passive manipulators, not active manipulators.
They are called, yes, passive. So this is also frequent on social media.
If as a listener or a reader, if you filter the messages, the values, the ideas coming to your mind or to your heart through the text or through the written or spoken text, this filtration or infiltration can also be considered as manipulation, but this is maybe self-manipulation.
Yes. This is called, yes, passive and self-manipulation.
Self-manipulation.
Thing I want to talk about is, I think we are all familiar with the internet and websites. Clickbait headlines. Have you ever heard about this?
It was my topic in my media studies last week. Clickbait headlines.
Yes, clickbait headlines. I'm also interested in clickbait headlines because they're also the kinds of manipulation as well. I want to switch to Turkish for my words to be stronger. I saw lots of examples. I just noted down some funny examples. Örneğin internete giriyorsunuz, başkentte deprem.
Yeah.
Bakıyorsunuz, hani ne düşünüyorsunuz Türkiye'de, ama bakıyorsunuz işte Kamboçya'nın başkentinde deprem olmuş. Başlık Kamboçya'da, başkentte. Veya bakıyorsunuz başka bir başlık, 5 bakan istifa etti. Haberi tıklıyorsunuz, Fransa'da bir dizide 5 bakan istifa etti gibi bir alt metin var. Yani bunlar da yine bizim hani sosyal medyada daha yoğun karşılaşılan veya internet sitelerinde.
10 tipten 10'dan fazla çeşidi var clickbait'in.
Evet.
İşte 9 reasons why something happens. Okay. More than 10, I think. Last week we studied clickbait headlines with my BA students in our this class.
What a coincidence then.
Okay, Doğan Bey.
I did not mention clickbait headlines in this presentation alone. It can be a topic of study.
Yes, because this is one of the most important manipulation sources.
Actually, media is a storehouse for linguistic studies. But unfortunately, most of MA students keep themselves away from studying media texts. We have the term media linguistics. It is a new topic, especially if we compare other studies in the field of linguistics. It's a storehouse.
Okay, Doğan Saltaş, thank you very much for the question about the linguistic manipulation in social media. But Fehmi admitted that it's not priority and it's not being question of interest. But Fehmi Hocam opened a new area for you to work on. So in future, I'm hoping to see more work from you in this issue. Okay, I'll be very happy to see and hear more different voice, and please feel free.
Türkçe'de yapabiliriz. Bazı arkadaşlar var. Gazeteciler onlar bileceklerini söylediler. Bu tartışma kısmını Türkçe'de yapabiliriz. Yani belki oradan da sorular gelir.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, it's okay. I mean, we can continue with Turkish or English, or so. Which?
Depends on the question.
Okay.
Hocam, Muhammed Hoca raised his hand.
Yes. Yes, I mean, Muhammad from the translation discipline, yes, also this issue is very much related to Muhammad because Muhammad is, I mean, is playing with words, okay? Yes, Muhammad.
Naci Hocam, thank you very much. And Fehmi Hocam also, I want to thank you very much for this great presentation. I learned a lot and I taught a lot, I can say. I just thought that when we are discussing these kind of things, thanks to you again, we did this one more time this evening. I feel that we mostly do this from the perspective of receivers. So we say, for example, media manipulates, completely agree. They through media, others, the world, the leaders, the media leaders, maybe the politicians, always we say and we observe that they manipulate us. I wonder, Fehmi Hocam, what happens if we are not inactive, if we are not passive, but if we get rather than that, if we get the active position. For example, if we are the ones who are to create the media, through media we can make our voices heard across the world. And as I always say to my students, we don't have to be just the readers of this world. We can be the writers also in the world. So if to be writers in the world, to just not to read what is told to us, but to create something across the world, sometimes, and to spread this, sometimes we need the media also. So if manipulation is inevitable media in media, and when we are the producers of the media, how will we deal with manipulating? Indeed, don't we need manipulation also if we have something to give to the world on media? And I wonder if there is, as Selçuk Hocam touched upon this just some minutes ago, is there a way of manipulating for good reasons? If we have something to change the things, if we have a truth to say to the world through media, how can we deal with this manipulation thing? And is there a way of, for example, just as an imagination, a way of effectively manipulating for good reasons? Also, personally, I think this is just a comment. I think whenever we say something, whenever I try to communicate, whenever I choose some words, I think we always manipulate the things. It's my personal opinion. And Naci Hocam, thank you very much. I think translation is also all the time manipulating the things. And we as translators maybe manipulate based on the things which are true for us. Thank you very much.
Manipulators. Now, I know a lot of articles written in the field of translation dealing with manipulation in translation, and you translators are also manipulators, or when we translate, we also manipulate. So here I used the definition from Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. And according to Oxford Dictionary, manipulation has negative connotations, at least within media context or political context. Well, can we have some positive connotations in other spheres or, fields? Of course, yes. But by its very nature, this term creates, ask anybody in the street, ask them how they feel when they are manipulated, or what occurs to their minds when they hear the word manipulation, and all of them or most of them will just tell you that it is something negative.
Hocam, I have just a small question at this point. I just want to repeat it. If one day, if we try to found a media agency through which we want to spread the truth across the world, is it ever possible for us not to manipulate?
Well, it is for you, that's the right media, and for others, it is the wrong media. Okay. It's the wrong media. So again, in some way of my presentation, media, today's media platforms, in some way or another, I mean, just, have been forced to be influential. I mean, just not to be informative. So, especially in this age of technology, in electronic media, I mean, not the printed versions, but electronic versions of media or newspapers. So in the past, they made their money just depending on advertising. So not today, media platforms are no longer the source of news of information. They are just functioning as think tank organizations. Okay, think tank organizations. What these organizations do? The word they just release reports to influence a group of people. Okay, some minority groups, some cultural groups, or just to set their agenda or to build their agenda. So, I mean, it also depends on the readers, what we expect from newspapers. So we are recipients, we are receivers. So I put some of the blame and responsibility of being manipulated on myself. I read it, I buy it. I buy this manipulation, or I like it to be manipulated.
Okay, I got your point, Mohammed. It's a very subtle point. So what Mohammed, this is my understanding, what Mohammed has said. I mean, so we all want to influence someone. When we write something, when we appeal, talk to someone, so we somehow try to influence other people. We want people to buy our ideas. We want people to agree with us. But I don't know, I'm not sure whether this can be called manipulation, as Fehmi put very beautiful. Manipulation is very often associated with negative things because it's a kind of exploiting, distorting reality, exploiting people's emotions, feelings, and values for certain either individual or other benefits. But again, I mean, this is a very, to me, philosophical question, by the way, Mohammed. So we need to invite Hasan and Lokman Hocam to discuss this issue.
Just, I want to put something. So far, I have read many articles in media research. I haven't read a term as like positive manipulation.
I agree with you. Yes, I mean,
not one single key term. I mean, it's just, I have a dictionary of media research, no word just like positive manipulation. Manipulation, but by its very nature, it is, or it has negative meaning.
Hocam, just I want to add something. My point is that today, just we all have our truths. Today, if we say we want to establish a media, and across the world, we will use this to express to the world our truths, basic truths, to change the world for the.
But it is your truth.
Yes, that's the point. So it means that in this situation, whenever I tell my truths, I am manipulating, and this organization will manipulate. That's the point I want to say.
You know, you
don't have truth. You are meaningless.
all of you may know it. In 2016, Oxford declared this word the word of the year. Now, we have a long list of truths.
Ask question to Mohammed. Mohammed, do you think that you have truth?
Yeah.
For me,
yeah.
My perspective, from my perspective, Hocam.
Who decides that you have truth?
Me.
You decide.
Of course, my truth.
But someone is going to tell you who the hell are you? You know, you are going to give us your truth.
truth. Again, I am saying for you, it's wrong. But for me, that's
So-
my truth. I mean,
Today, the main objective of media is to relativize the truth. Relativize it.
I completely agree hocam.
Relativize it. So relative truth, I think, explain everything. It is yours, but not mine. So, I mean, as many truth as many people, okay, how many people there are in the world, there are many truths.
I completely agree hocam. Thank you very much.
Selçuk Hocam, but before Selçuk Hocam, and let's be, I want to be a bit fair, and so before Selçuk Hocam, anyone else who wants to make any contribution or ask any, Hasan Hocam, yes.
Hocam, thank you very much, Fehmi Hocam, for the insightful talk and the vivid examples. I'm not going to ask the question, but I will just be thinking about the issue from a language teaching perspective. And I like the examples that you have provided. And so we have been discussing that narratives are embedded in provocations, manipulations, and language is not free from culture. So at the end of the day, and all these things, you know, take us to be empowered with a proper degree of media literacy, as you have noted in your talk. And when I was looking at your examples, I saw that some of the examples, especially, I'm just thinking it from language teaching perspective, by the way, require, for example, discourse level interpretation, and which is not achievable or attainable for low level learners. So I will be thinking about this after this presentation. So how to integrate media literacy into our courses, into EFL settings. So thank you very much.
Okay, Hasan'cığım, thank you very much for your contribution. Selçuk Hocam, you raised your hand, so I don't want to be rude to anyone, please. And
Hocam, I think Cüneyt Hoca should be the next.
oh, okay. Okay. Yes, Cüneyt Hocam. Yes, Cüneyt Hocam, could you be brief? So we are running out of time.
Thank you very much, Fehmi Hocam, for your presentation. If I am allowed to speak Turkish, I could be better understood for the other participants.
Okay.
Is that a problem, or I may go on in English?
No problem hocam. Go ahead.
Hocam şöyle bir şey var. Bir post-truth'tan, medyadan bahsediyoruz. Veya az önce Muhammed Hocam vardı. Kendince hani gerçeği anlatan bir dil kullanıp bir şeyler yayabilir miyim gibi. Ama post-truth'ta şöyle bir şey var. Ben de derslerimde anlatıyorum. Olgular yerine duygular önemli. Yani olgular yerine duygular çalışıyor. Gerçekte olayın ne olduğundan daha çok bu olay hakkında ne hissettiğiniz daha önemli hale gelmiş. Yani bu zaman ruhunda post-truth ile sezgisel davranışla hareket etme, sezgilere güvenme var ve yediğiniz, içtiğinizden, okuduğunuzdan, yaptığınız her şeyden sizi sorumlu tutan, sizi yönlendiren bir medya var ve bu medya, Fehmi Hocam az önce de dediniz, gerçekte ya da geçmişte medyanın var olması reklamlara dayalıydı, şuydu buydu ama günümüzde medya iktidarın en büyük, en etkin malzemesidir ve postmodern bir toplumda yaşıyoruz. O modernizmin ortaya sürdüğü ütopik düşünceler çöktü gitti. Ya da modernizmin ütopik arayışı olan nitelenen teknoloji insanı bu hale getirdi. Yani insanlar artık bir simülasyonun içerisinde yaşıyor. Kendilerine sunulan her şeyi gerçek olarak kabul ediyorlar. Yani bu post kelimesi önüne geldiği her kelimenin sonrasını ifade ederken paradoksal bir şekilde de nitelediği truth'un yıkımına yol açmış. Yani günümüz bireyleri veya iktidarın özneleri diyelim Foucault'un deyimiyle kendilerine sunulan gerçekliğin arka planından ne olduğunu, nesinin var olduğunu araştırmaya yönelmiyorlar. Bu bir de tüketim toplumuyla alakalı. Yani öyle bir topluma dönüştürülmüş ki insanlar sanki televizyon reklamında sunulan neyse onlar alıp kabul ediyormuş gibi kendilerine sunulan, gösterilen verdiğiniz örneklerde de bunlar vardı ya da diğer hocalarımın söylediklerinde hiçbir şeyi sorgulama ihtiyacı hissetmiyorlar ki power dediğimiz zaten iktidarın da politik anlamda yapmaya çalıştığı bu. Dezenformasyonları kendi çıkarına, kendi iktidarına yönelik neyi doğru buluyorsa medya sayesinde bunu insanlara empoze ediyor. Ve birey öyle bir şizofrenik hale gelmiş ki bunlar hiçbir şekilde sorgulama ihtiyacı hissetmiyor. Yani gidip bir marketten bir şey alıyormuş gibi aldığımız malzemelerin ingrediyentlerine de bakmıyoruz. Her şeyi kabullenen bir yapıya bürünmüşüz. Yani anlamın, gerçeğin çöküşü var. Baudrillard da bunu anlatıyor işte simülasyonlar, simülatörler derken herkese o açtığımız ki Baudrillard bunu da söyler. Sade bu newspaper boyutunda değil. Bence daha tehlikelisi bir televizyon var. Baudrillard da bunu söylüyor. Dünyanın en kötü aracıdır, aletidir, icadıdır diye. Ve biz toplum olarak da eğer bizim toplumumuzu bu eksene alırsak saatlerimizi o ekranın karşısında harcıyoruz. Ve televizyon ilk icat edildiğinde Amerika'da araştırma yapılmış. Demişler ki kim oturup da bu kutuyu saatlerce seyreder diye. Tam bir ekran bağımlısına dönmüşüz. Yani bize ne veriliyorsa onu alıyoruz. Hani az önce Elif Şapan poisonous dediğiniz aslında televizyon, medya poisonous bir şey. Yani sürekli bir zehir saçıyor. Ve bu görüngüye alışık olan insan arka planda neyin gerçek olduğunu sorgulama hissetmiyor. Kendi öğrencilerimizde bile görüyoruz. Hocam bir ödev verdiğimizde Wikipedia'dan bir şey alıp yapıştırıyor veya herhangi bir kaynaktan. Bu neye yöneliktir? Zararlı bir neşriyat mıdır, değil midir bilmeden alıp yapıştırıyor. Yani gerçeğin artık ortadan kalktığı bir şey. Öyle simülasyonlara daldırılmışız ki buradan çıkmamız çok zor. Yani
Hocam,
kendimize ait olmayan bir dünyada bilinçsizce var olmaya çalışıyoruz. İşin kısacası bu hocam.
Evet,
Bunları
evet
eklemek
hocam,
istedim.
çok teşekkür ediyorum. Tabii kendi içinde çok bence tutarlı şeyler. Fakat tabii bu geceki konumuz yani linguistic manipulation ve de özellikle media text metin üzerinde. Dolayısıyla yani, bu çok değerli konular ama yani şu andaki konumuzun yani bunu bir medya eleştirisine dönüştürmememiz lazım. O farklı bir konudur. Televizyon mutlaka ilişkileri vardır ama yani linguistic manipulation in media text bu konu üzerinden gidersek en azından sunumunun da ruhuna da bir şekilde de hizmet etmiş olur. Teşekkür ediyorum. Selçuk Hocam buyur, elini kaldırdın.
Hocam çok kısa bir şey söyleyeceğim. Hala da ben bu manipulation'ın negatif olup olmadığıyla ilgili düşüncelerim var. Yani sorguluyorum şu anda. Self-questioning. Aklıma şeyin hikayesi geldi. Mimar Sinan'ın minare hikayesi geldi. Orada mesela bilir herhalde, dinleyenler de bilir. Çocuk bu minare yamuk diye naralar atarken Mimar Sinan kabul ediyor. Evet diyor, minare yamuk, doğru. Hemen bir halat istiyor işçilerinden. Halatı bağlattırıyor minareye. Çocuğa diyor ki ben şimdi bu minareyi çekeceğim. Sen bana yavaş yavaş söyle düzeldiği zaman. Minareyi çekmeye başlıyorlar. Evet diyor, düzeldi diyor, tamam diyor. Hani burada da bir manipülasyon söz konusu. Ama baktığınızda negatif değil yani. Muhammed Hocam'ın da değindiği gibi. Ben hala da bu manipulation'ın negatif bir şey olduğunu tam oturtturamadım hocam kafamda. Paylaşmak istedim.
Hocam teşekkür, ama ben yine Fehmi Hocam'ın tarafındayım. Yani gerek literatürümüze gerek günlük hayatımız yani manipülasyon kelimesi hep kendisiyle beraber bir negatif çağrışımı, bir hani misuse, abuse, exploitation'ı böyle içeren, karşıdakinin duygularını exploit yapan bir tarza girdiği için bu anlamda belki çok fazla günlük hayatta kullanılan karşılığı olmadığı için dediğiniz gibi biraz sanki Selçukcuğum seninki de zorlama bir şey oluyor. Bir manipülasyona, bir iyilik meleğe gidilmeye çalışıyoruz gibi oluyor. Ama belki onun yerine daha uygun kelimeler ya kelime bulabiliriz ama bu konuda bilmiyorum. Fehmi Hocam bir şey söylemek ister mi?
Zaten manipülasyon kelimesine, kavramına yüklediğim anlamı genelde medya kontekst üzerinde, yani medya bağlamında yükledim. Farklı alanlarda farklı manipülasyon olur. Tıpçılar bile manipüle edebilirler hastalarını. Yani ilaç vererek manipüle ederler. Oradaki manipülasyonun anlamı ne olur, pozitif mi? Ama bir şey söyleyeyim. Olumsuz olmadan daima etkilidir. Hiç kimse veya insanlar bir binanın yapılışını izlemezler. Ama bir binayı yıkarken oraya onlarca, yüzlerce insan toplanır. Yani negative is more effective and influential than positive. Bu yüzden negatif manipülasyonun alıcısı pozitif manipülasyonun alıcısından daha fazladır medyada. Siz düşmanınız hakkında veya karşınızdaki insanlar hakkında olumlu şey duymak istemezsiniz. Bir de medya platformları veya gazeteler üzerinde alalım. Hepsinin belli bir audience, yani hedef kitlesi var. Herkese yazılmıyor bu. Yani ilk gazetesi herkesin çıkmıyor. Onun belli bir hedef kitlesi var. Bütün operasyonlarını o hedef kitlesi üzerinde yapıyor. Bu yüzden de evet, izleyicilerimizin bir tanesi yazmış, all responsibility belongs to the readers. Okuyucular üzerinde de doğrudur. Alıcısı olduğu müddetçe manipülasyon yapılacaktır. Çünkü alıcısı var.
Ben oradan hemen şöyle bir ilk başta Fehmi Hocam bir soru sormuştum. Hemen açılış konuşmasında demiştim ki Fehmi Hocam günün sonunda bitirdiği zaman bu linguistik manipülasyonlara karşı nasıl rezist yaparız konusunda da bize bazı stratejileri verirse belki bu stratejileri hem kendi adımıza hem günlük pratiğe dökme hem de öğrencilerimize en azından bir metinle karşılaştıkları zaman nelerle karşılaştığını ve metinin arkasında görünmeyen bir takım senaryoların, manipülasyonların olduğu konusunda neler yapabiliriz diye sormuştum. Doğrudan cevap vermedin ama bu linguistik manipülasyonları anlatırken medyanın kullandığı manipülasyonlar örnek verirken aslında o kullanılan teknikleri, taktikleri bile öğrencilerimize aktarmak. Dolayısıyla öğrencilerimiz bir metinle karşılaştığı zaman en azından repertuarında o manipülasyon tekniklerinin medyadan bahsediyoruz en azından şimdilik. Kullanılabileceği bilgisini ve awareness'ini, duyarlılığını sahip oldukları zaman burada şu A, B, C, D, E, F manipülasyonlardan bir tanesi olabilir şeklinde bir hazır bulunuşları olursa belki o konuda yine Cüneyt Hocam dediği gibi de hani böyle etkilenmeye hazır, manipülasyona hazır, verdiğin hepsini satan, her türlü hikayeyi alan bir öğrenci tipinden işte Sokrates dediği gibi böyle sorgulayan, arkasına önüne bakan, doğru haberin kaynağına inmeye çalışan, farklı yönlerden bakmaya çalışan, bütün realitenin olmadığı konusunda en azından kendi içine bir sorgulamaya giren bir öğrenci tipine bu anlamda da fayda sağlarız ve başta sormuş olduğum soruyu da bu şekilde cevaplamış oldum. Evet arkadaşlar, yani şu anda saatimiz evet haydi ilerledi ama böyle bir son bir hocamıza, arkadaşımıza da böyle bir soru sorma, katkı yapma veya en azından ya şunu da söyleseydim, en azından şu katkıyı yapsaydım. Belki bizim için de o bir kaybettiğimiz bir bilgi azık olabilir. Vermek istiyorum. Ondan sonra da oturumumuzu müsaadenizle kapatmak istiyorum.
Hocam ben bu arada isterseniz YouTube'dan gelen yorumlardan ziyade daha doğrusu çok fazla Fehmi Hocama ve sizlere her zamanki gibi selamlarımız var, teşekkürlerimiz var. Bizi ta 1. sunumdan beri bu 28. sunumumuzu asla yalnız bırakmayan Atatürk Üniversitesi
Kafkas Üniversitesi, Ardahan Üniversitesi, İstanbul Sabahattin Zaim Üniversitesi her zamanki gibi bu akşam da yerlerini almışlar. Bize çok selam gönderiyorlar.
Ali
Onlara
Hocam yeter tek
iletmiş
başına
olalım.
zaten. Bütün üniversiteyi temsil ediyor zaten. Evet yani. Ordu Üniversitesi'ni unutmayalım bu arada.
Evet,
Recep Tayyip Erdoğan Rize Üniversitesi her zaman Artvin, Çorlu Üniversitesi de hep takipçimiz ve misafirimiz oldu. Onlarla bu etkinlikleri gerçekleştirdik. Evet ben başta bu güzel konuşma için Fehmi Hocam'a canı gönülden teşekkür ediyorum ve kendisinden de bu alanda bu alanda yürümesini, çünkü bu alan bakir bir alan, bu alan yeni bir alan, bu alan çok fazla araştırmanın, research'ün üretilmediği bir alan. Sistematiği de biraz eksik bir alan. İnşallah bizim bölümümüzde bu yüksek lisans seviyesinde Fehmi Hocam tarafından bu ders veriliyor. Ama artık bu dersi Fehmi Hocam lisans seviyesine indirmemiz lazım. Bu önemli. Özellikle bir taraftan çeviri, bir taraftan bu ders, bir taraftan classroom discourse bence daha nitelikli bir öğrenciyi kazanma, elde etme anlamında güzel bir ivme ve katkı olacağını düşünüyorum. Ve bu güzel konuşmanın için teşekkür ediyorum. Değerli hocalarım burada. Hepsine teşekkür ediyorum. Bu geç saatlere kadar burada kaldılar. Değerli sorular için, katılımları için özellikle A takımımız Zehra Tuncer ve Özlem ve yine Özür hocamız, bölüm başkan yardımcımız ve diğer tüm hocalarımız, arkadaşlarımız, eski öğrencilerimiz, mezunlarımız, alan dışı misafirlerimiz, akşamın, gecenin ilerleyen bu saatlerine kadar bizimle kaldığınız için hepinize canı gönülden teşekkür ediyorum. Yarın akşam inşallah 4. serinin sonu olacak. Yarın akşam ve yine bu saatlerde, aynı saatte 9 gibi Kafkas Üniversitesi'nden Gencer hocamızı inşallah misafir edeceğiz. Yine yarın buluşmak üzere. Herkese iyi geceler diliyorum.
İyi geceler.
İyi geceler.